Here we go. Okay. Hi friends, welcome to the channel and today's video where we're going to be going over my top books of 2025. And this is especially difficult because I was really trying to narrow this down to 10 books. We did not get there. This is actually going to be my top 15, but 2 of these books represent 7-book series, so really it's my top 28. We tried. We really tried. And within these series, I didn't want to just list, books 1 through 7, and then there we go. There's my top 14. Yeah, the whole series has to be there. And we'll talk about those. We'll talk about some of these books, and I'm not going to go into crazy detail about all of these. To be very honest, just some of them, it's been a little bit since I've read, and I might not know every single plot point, but I'll just give you a brief overview and kind of just more of my feelings on it and how I found the reading experience, because perhaps that would be of interest to perhaps pick up some of these books. But like I said, this is our top 15. And this was incredibly hard. I had started at a top 30, wheedled it down to 20, and then this morning, really tried my hardest to get to a top 10. And I just really couldn't go further than this. I'm somebody who typically reads over 300 books a year, and just really, again, narrowing down a less than 10% of what I read. Also, I guess this is 5%, but I tend to pretty liberally give out 5 stars as well. I know what types of books I like, and I do like to try to stick to those. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I think a lot of these are either ones that have emotionally impacted me the most, or that I have the most intense reading experience from, if that makes sense. And yeah, with just that little preamble, I might as well get into these. I'll start off with the series, and overall, this is not gonna be in any particular order. I'll say if any of them I feel like could be my top book. We might actually say that about every one of these, where I'm like, this is my number 1 read. Who knows? But yeah, with all of that, let's just get started. So the first series we're going to talk about, this shouldn't be a surprise if you've watched any of my videos, and it's Dungeon Crawler Carl. This has really taken over the world in the last year, and I've seen it on so many best of lists. I think there were 7 books out. All of them were 5 stars to me, and it just was one of those series that truly took over my life for a good period of time. This is a lit RPG. We're following the adventures of a man basically on a reality TV show, dungeon level based, basically Dungeons and Dragons based game, as he tries to go through these levels while the galaxy as a whole is watching and entertained by what is happening. The things I've read, I'm going to, I recently decided to just start buying a bunch of t-shirts that are Dungeon Crawler Carl. I found a pair of pajamas that are Princess Donut, and I'm gonna get those soon. Really into this. I've decided also I'm gonna download the audiobooks and re-listen to them soon. It has really taken over so much of my life. I've talked about this so much to my husband. He has not picked it up yet, but I basically talk about this nonstop. And yeah, obviously the entire series deserves a spot on this list. If I were to try and pick my top book within the series, this is not a popular opinion, but I'm gonna go with the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, which takes place on this weird level of interconnecting train systems, and it is just one of the most confusing levels ever, because it's kind of like a subway system where there's all of these different train levels or train systems going to different places, and our characters are trying to figure out this map and how to get off this level. Well, we are the information is really not provided to the reader, which I appreciated. I thought just something about that absolutely tickled my brain. And this is a weird one where there's genuinely several nights where I went to bed and dreamed about this subway system, because it just overtook my mind in so many ways. So yeah, really love that one. The next series we're going to talk about is the Psychoshifters, or Psychoverse, by Jasmine Mass. Completely different vibe. This is a very unhinged fantasy romance, but I'd say humorous also. And this This is one that I've had a hard time recommending to people because a very specific person, a very specific type of reader has to like this one. It's Why Choose, it is shifters, it is unhinged, very, very toxic male main characters, and just a very toxic, weird world. But I am somebody who happens to really, really enjoy that. And those are a lot of my buzzwords when it comes to like fantasy romance, Why Choose books. This is technically 2 series we're talking about. So there's one following one main character. I think there's 3 books and then 4 books following the second. I ate these up. I gave every single one of them 5 stars. I was addicted. They're all like, again, crazy Why Choose romances with very, very toxic male main characters. I love that. I do not want that in real life. Love that. Love reading about it. Find it entertaining to no end. I think I read this entire series in like 2 weeks. That is not something I typically do. I'm not really somebody who like reads series after series all the time. Loved it. Very, very much loved it. I'll say also I'm currently reading a book from Jasmine Mass's other series, Bonds of Hercules, and I love it. I love it so much. If we were trying to try and guess a favorite within the series, I think I would give it to Psycho Shifters, the very first book in this whole series, entirely just because it was, I guess, the first one. It was the most exciting. It was the most like your world building and just had a lot of really, really fun things being dropped in at you. Honestly, as I'm talking about it, I want to reread this, which I have kind of like dubbed 2026 the year of rereads for me. Like I'm going to reread this one. I think I'm going to. I want to re-listen to Dungeon Crawler Carl. I like mentally had decided the other day that I think they're maybe up here. All of my Ione Andrews books, I'm going to reread those entire series, which Ione Andrews is my favorite author of all time, and all of her series I love. I just feel like 2026 is the year of just rereading books I love. But with that, those are the 2 series that I wanted to bring up. So now we're going to go into more standalone books, I guess. I'm thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This, I'm just going to briefly say, or description, what I kind of comes to mind. It is a woman who goes to her new boyfriend's family's home for a weekend and weird things ensue. Not going to get more into it than that, I guess, but it was weird. It was really, really weird. This was one of the most like WTF, what the fuck did I just read kind of books I've ever done. I literally put it down and then reread it twice in a row. Reread it 2 more times because I was like, I want to make sure I'm actually comprehending what I just read. So yeah, it was very, very crazy and just one that really, really stuck in my brain that way. And one that just absolutely blew my mind. So for that reason alone, it has to be on this list. I don't even know, like this is one, I don't know if I'd recommend this to anyone. I thought it was fantastic though. I thought it was something that really, really like absolutely took over my head for a long time. Next, we have Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is more of like a classic sci-fi book. It's a Hugo award-winning novel. I think it came out like, I think in the 80s. Okay, I guess 1989 is when it came out. And we are basically in this book following the story of several different, I think they call them pilgrims. So 7 pilgrims who are going to this planet called Hyperion, basically on their own little mission, their own little pilgrimage. This is a planet that it's very weird. There's this monster known as the Shriek who kind of inhabits it and haunts it. And there's these weird caverns that are like mazes with something to do with time. Very, very weird. But we are following basically the story of these 7 people and how this planet has in some way or another basically taken over their lives, or something weird about this planet has changed the course of their life. It was intensely interesting. Like I was insanely captivated. Basically, with the nature of the story, it's 7 short stories, 7 novellas telling the stories of these 7 characters, and all of them are just so wildly different. There's definitely some that I much preferred, some that I found way more interesting, some not as interesting, but overall, just such a fascinating concept, and it just really, really cool in this futuristic society where there's so many different planets, so many different ways that one could live a life, and so many ways that this planet Hyperion could theoretically impact them. Really fascinating. I think it was the first and the fourth story were the ones that I found the most interesting, but love it, love it. I've since read the sequel, and I think there's other books within the world I just haven't gotten to yet, but the sequel was also fantastic. The Sword of Kaigen, it follows a woman who has basically been married into this family on a remote island within this fantastical world where the men are these very, very like well-renowned warriors. They have special abilities. I think it's to do with wind and ice, if I'm not mistaken at this point. But women in particular on this island are meant to be in a more subservient position. So they are very much there to birth the children, like raise families, but never be involved in anything. But our main character, she comes from more of a background where she had a lot of freedom. She was a very, very well-renowned warrior in her own right, and basically by her family wishes went to this island to really benefit their line, benefit her family, because she is being married to a more wealthy man. We follow her many years later where she's had multiple children and is living on this island very unhappily with her husband, and still very much loving her children, but has very much been relegated to a more docile role than she would like. And at this time there is an attack on the island, and we see basically the ramifications of this on her entire family. I'm not really getting too much more into the plot than this, but it is fascinating. This is very, very much about familial bonds, the mother-son relationships, and in particular about like finding your own place within and refinding happiness within like places you never thought you would before. Very emotional, very, very emotional, very unexpected in a lot of ways, and just really intensely good. I did cry on this. I don't cry super often when I read books, but this was indeed one of them. And yeah, fantastic. Another book I cried on, Sunrise on the Reaping. This one had me ugly sobbing. And again, I don't cry very often when I'm reading. I am brought to tears, maybe a bit more, but outright sobbing does not happen very often. This one, we all know what it is. I'm not going to say too much. It is Haymitch's story from Sunrise on the Reaping, or it's Haymitch's story from the Hunger Games. This takes place during the second quarter quell, which involves basically double the amount of tributes being taken from every district, and we follow his story within the arena. And all I can say is just pain. Every part of this book, pain. Haymitch's life, oof, he had a rough one. I feel for this man so much. This was amazing. Perhaps one of Suzanne Collins' best works. I do hesitate to say that because Catching Fire is so good. But this one, brilliant, like masterfully done. I love her and hate her on the same vein. Yeah, so good. Next, we have Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This was a reread for me, but interestingly, when I first read it, I want to say 15 years ago. I don't know when it originally came out. 2018. That does not feel wrong. 2016. Oof, that feels wrong. But because in my mind, I was a teenager when I read this. I was not 10 years ago. But when I originally read this, I did enjoy it quite a bit. But something about reading it in today's political climate / with, I guess, the level of maturity I am now drastically impacted my reading experience. And in this one, we're following a basically utopian world where all illnesses have been healed. Nanobites have been created which extend people's lives indefinitely. And in order to prevent overpopulation, this Scythe system has been created where basically there are a select individuals within the society who just indiscriminately have to kill lives and reap lives. They can do it based on pretty much whatever is up to their discretion, but they have certain quotas of basically to match the births in the area to, again, protect from overpopulation. And oh my god, this is so good. We are following in this one in particular 2 novices who are trained under this one scythe, who basically he decides that both of them have very promising futures. He can't really decide which one should be taking his place. So he decides to bring in these 2 people and they will compete to see. I don't know what I was saying, but basically the world was so interesting, and something about the current political climate just made this like so much more impactful too. Okay, next we'll talk about, I guess, the one romance I have on here. Kind of looking at my list, I'm like, I have 1 romance, like 1 fantasy romance, though to be fair, it's a series. It's a Psycho Shifter series. 1 like contemporary book, 1 nonfiction, and then everything else is fantasy and sci-fi. So, you know, there we go. But the 1 romance I have is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This one is the ultimate enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine kind of book, marriage of convenience, like everything all wrapped in one. We're following a assistant to this man known as the Wall of Winnipeg. He is a very, very famous football player and known as being like very quiet, not rude, but just very reserved. And he is Canadian, obviously from Winnipeg, and learns that his visa is expiring. So he asks his assistant to just get into a marriage of convenience with him so that he can stay in the US. This was like the ultimate slow burn as well. It took so long for them to fall in love, and well, they fell in love quicker, but to admit their feelings. And this entire book, you're like, oh my god, please, please, please kiss, please just do it. And yeah, I was addicted. Like truly could not think of a romance book that I found more addicting this year. This one was truly perfection, and just kind of what all other romances now lead up to, or what all other romances just kind of have to compare to now. Might as well jump through some of these. So my 1 nonfiction was Empire of Pain, and this is going into basically the history of the opioid crisis within the US and the family/pharmaceutical companies that kind of buried the evidence for how terrible things were getting, and kind of just led the public and all the government officials on a huge lie of saying that all of these things were manufactured. Like all of the evidence that was coming out about how highly addictive these opioids were, how they were just burying all of that evidence, and basically led to the catastrophic state of opioid addiction today. Truly fascinating. This was like also a horrible read. Very, very, very difficult, but really, really interesting piece of history as well. And just really kind of good to know how things got to the way they are today, how terrible pharmaceutical companies can be, how terrible the capitalistic world is just because, you know, profits, just how terrible this drive for profits is over, you know, making sure people are actually safe. Really, really good, really rage-inducing, but really good. And then our 1 literary fiction, which I think is also more of a little bit of fantasy. I would definitely say that this kind of falls into fantasy as well, is Girl Dinner by Olivia Lake. She is one of my favorite authors. Not everything she writes works for me, but everything is guaranteed to be an interesting time. And in this one, we are really getting into the world of toxic academia, toxic sororities, and toxic men, but also cannibalism. I think that this was just brilliant. Like everything she does is brilliant, and just really truly fascinating of seeing how quickly somebody can get brought into a cult-like mentality, and yeah, just how quickly somebody can fall for it. Brilliant, like every part of it. I loved it. Really delved into a lot of things that I personally don't have experience with, which is motherhood, the burden of mothering falling primarily on women, but also like the primary burden of housekeeping falls on women as well. And we're really expected to, you know, after having a child, after going through something, to just immediately be able to bounce back to exactly what we were before, and also how it drastically impacts women's careers. Really good, like had a lot of very good feminism within it and a lot of good conversation starters, I would say. Yeah, loved it. Death's End by Cixin Liu. This is the third book in the Three Body Problem series, which is basically a series where there is a looming threat of a alien invasion coming in. This was by far my favorite in the series. I think I read all three last year, but it is the only one I gave 5 stars, and in my mind it was significantly better than the others. This one was very long encompassing, I guess we could say. It took place over a very, very long period of time, and the sheer amount of sci-fi concepts that were explored in this one were fascinating. You could tell the author just kind of was like, well, every single sci-fi idea I have ever had, I am throwing it at the wall. And it worked. It really, really worked. It felt like 5 different novels in one because of how many interesting things kept happening and how many setting changes and world changes and all of these things. Yeah, this one, brilliant. This entire series, fantastic. Really, really, really good. Just really, really interesting. I can't wait for the next series of the TV show to come out. Really loved it. I love my space operas, I guess. This one is more of a quiet kind of sci-fi book where we are particularly following the crew of a spaceship as they go through these different adventures. And I describe this as being very quiet and contemplative, where yes, we are in this crazy exciting sci-fi setting and there's all these things going on, but the focus of the story is very much just on the characters of this crew and how they are basically forming a family with each other, despite being different types of aliens from different planets, from entirely different types of worlds. They still manage to all like form a family unit together, and just there's so much love between these characters as we're following them through the story. Honestly, like incredibly just lovely and a very warm, cozy hug of the book. Becky Chambers is very much a, I would say, cozy sci-fi writer, and just all of their books are just so sweet and loving. And yeah, this one was amazing. The like adventure itself, there were certain things happening. We're following a pretty big like mission as this group is trying to go to this like distant galaxy and kind of bringing them into this core republic. But like that isn't even what I think about. I don't think about that plot at all. It's the relationships between the characters that were really, really at the forefront for me in this one. And then I guess let's talk about another space opera, Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruccio. I have read several books within this series now. I think I've read the first 5. This is definitely the standout for me. Overall, I do like this series. They keep alternating between 4 and 5 stars for me, but this is the one that I think is by far the best. We're in this society where we are following the son of a nobleman who tries to escape and ends up basically being sent to a distant planet. His ship crashes and he wakes up and has no proof of who he was before, but also he can't contact his father because he would be hauled back to the life that he was. So he ends up basically going from a journey to being a nobleman to a homeless vagrant to a gladiator within this planet. And we are following his story through many, many books. This one's primarily just him in his gladiator years as he goes on this adventure where he basically, ultimately, his story is that he goes on to destroy his son and annihilate 4 billion lives. It's good. It's really, really good. This one, super fun, like space gladiators. That's kind of like the quickest description of it, but I think that really, really works for it. Right, we are down to the final 2. So, The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hobson. This is basically a world where the current emperor is stepping down from his role. They have a very strict government structure where ever so many years the emperor has to step down. And the 12 ruling factions are now in this competition to see who is going to become the next emperor. Each of the clans represents one of the gods, and they are different like positions within society. So the only one, the Raven, they're the scholars, basically by the name. Then I think the bears are the warriors. There's like a lot of them are warrior based, but in different focuses. And we are following a woman from the Ravens who is basically tasked with investigating a suspicious death, and from there ends up being drawn into becoming the representative for the Ravens to compete in this trial to become the next emperor. There's basically one trial per faction, and we're following her as she's kind of investigating what these potential ongoing murders are, and also really learning all of these secrets and this deep political scheme that is in the background. It was great. It was so good. I am incredibly excited to continue on in this series because I feel like it can go a wild many of places. So I'm excited. And then the final book we're going to talk about is Dissolution by Nicholas Binge. This is sci-fi about, I don't even know if I can describe this one properly. Just say it's a woman investigating her husband's past, and it goes in a very interesting way, delving into time and memories. And this woman is undergoing experiments to see basically if this technology that had been created can save her husband. I don't even want to say more than that because I think this is one that it's almost better to not know anything. And it just books that focus on time, books that focus on memories are something I find incredibly interesting. So with that, there we go. Those are my top 15 books of 2025. Very sci-fi and fantasy focused, which I love. That is fully like, that's my thing. Those are what I read. Those are what I love. And those are what I'm going to continue to focus on this year. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you read any of these, if there are any of them that were on your best of list, any that you want to add to your TBR. Also, let me know what your favorite books were from last year. I'm very curious. So thank you for watching. If you haven't already, would love if you would consider subscribing, and I'll see you in a video very soon. Bye.